Vous me tapotez, c'est ça?
Oui, à 1 minute de la fin.
Okay, it's short for a good movie.
Okay.
8 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, death, violence, recession. Why wouldn't you go for something easier for a first movie as a director?
Right. Well, it felt simple at the time. You know, it felt like it was my first film, and I thought a fairy tale would be an easy way to start. You know, and I saw this sort of natural kind of fairy tale happening in these neighborhoods in Detroit. You know, a dark fairy tale, but you know, because there's 40 miles of abandoned neighborhoods, and within that there's these families, you know, trying to survive, and they don't get water or power sometimes to the street lights on their street. And I thought, you know, I spent some time there, and it felt like if you were living there, you could feel like you were the last person on earth. And for them, the American dream has sort of turned into a nightmare. So the idea was to try and make a film that felt like that, like a dream sort of turning into a nightmare.
I know you've been asked before, the movie is quite dark. Are you that pessimistic in real life?
I think the film is very hopeful, you know, because even though they are struggling to survive, you know, and the world is sort of a dangerous place for them, they're you know, they're trying to hold on to their home and to their way of life, and they are broken pieces that sort of bring themselves together to form a whole. So I think I think there's a lot of hope in the movie.
And you're a hopeful man then?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if the movie is any indication.
I think the women are, they have very important roles, and they're the highlights for me in the movie, even though they're having hard times. Is it your way to be a feminist, would you say, like to defend themselves?
No, I just think that, you know, I have very strong women in my life. That seems natural to me, you know. Those women they're strong characters in my life, and I think it would make sense that they would be strong characters in my films.
You're often actually talking about your mother, and I think I just heard, is it true she was taking you with her when you were a kid to visit cemeteries?
Yeah.
Could you tell me more about that?
She's, you know, they moved from our childhood house because they believed that it was haunted. And so I grew up sort of hearing these ghost stories, and she just sort of had a sense of like a fascination with the macabre. So she would go to cemeteries and read the tombstones and just let me sort of play. So even when I was a kid, you know, those ideas weren't really scary. They were more like grounds for my imagination.
Would you say, I mean, it's your first experience as a director, and we've seen many of your influences. Would you say in the past years, this experience, you were very impatient and you were looking forward to it, or you were very anxious and thinking, oh, I'm going to do it later and we'll see later? How are you feeling about that?
I felt like it came about in a really easy, natural way. You know, it wasn't a real conscious choice to direct. It was that I happened to have the opportunity to go to Detroit, and I had this experience there that was, you know, that really affected me, just seeing the way that some of these families were living. And I just got a camera and I started filming, and I went back and forth for about a year just filming some of these locations, these buildings, because they were being torn down. And I thought if I was going to make a film here, or a film about one of these families, I needed to start shooting now, because if I waited, half of it would be gone, you know. But then I was making the movie, you know. Even if I was by myself, I was making the movie, and I could watch the movie, and it gave me the feeling that it was happening, that the train had left the station. And then slowly people came on board, and then after a year we were there with actors and we were shooting, you know. So it happened in a very like organic way, I guess.
Listening to you, I was thinking, did you ever think about making a documentary rather than a fiction and going to Detroit?
I did, you know, but I didn't. I felt like what I connected to was the feeling of this dream becoming a nightmare, and I wanted to sort of just focus on that feeling and make a movie that you know, that where I could share that feeling that I had through a film, as opposed to getting lost in the socio-political, economical reasons for why it's for why this happened. And I also thought it was, you know, that there's kids growing up in these neighborhoods, and I thought it was for me, an interesting idea that they would try and romanticize what was happening to them. So in the film, the kids believe that it is this way because there's some evil spell. And I thought that was an interesting approach because, you know, if you were a kid growing up in these neighborhoods, you would want to make it interesting or important what you were going through somehow. And so if you made it something mystical, you know, it would make it important somehow and romantic. And it reminded me of films I grew up on, like Goonies or The Secret of Nim, or, you know, these Amblin sort of 80s films that made me fall in love with movies in the beginning.
I have just one last question. You're a musician yourself. There is a famous French singer, I don't know if you heard about him, his name is Johnny Hallyday. I don't know if it rings well. He's our big pop star singer, and he actually just said in a recent interview a few days ago that if someone had to play his role on big screen, because no biopic has been made yet on him, but it will probably come one day, he'd like it to be you. So I was just wondering whether, I mean, I know you've been singing and even dancing when a kid. Would you be willing to act and even sing in French one day?
Well, I don't know anything about this story. Do you agree with him that I should play him?
I think, yeah, I think there's something. I mean, he has a very interesting pattern. He's been known since the 60s. He's been going through different periods. He's like one of our monuments. I mean, now, today is like I think he's in his 70s, but he had a very interesting life. So
you write it and direct it. You'll shoot it. You'll do sound.
You'll sing in French?
And we'll do it. Yeah, I'm going to need about 10 years to prepare.
Thank you very much.
Okay.